Welcome to Counterpoint. I'm Tanya Granick-Allen. Several weeks ago, I introduced you to James Topp, who is marching over 4,000 kilometers across Canada to Ottawa. He is marching to speak for the many Canadians who have lost their jobs because of the mandates, or for the many Canadians who have felt coerced into getting the jab. He is a current serving soldier who has served in the Canadian Armed Forces for 28 years. When I caught up with James last time, he was in Saskatchewan. Well, now he is in Ontario, and within a week or so, he will march into Ottawa, his final destination. Later in the program, we're going to hear from his colleague, Tom Morazzo, who is the spokesman for the Freedom Convoy and is chief of staff for Veterans for Freedom. But now we are joined by James Topp himself as he continues his march to Ottawa. James, good to see you again. I can see you're keeping up a very brisk pace.
Hi, how are you? Yeah, we're definitely plugging along at a rapid rate. We're probably about 300 kilometers west of Ottawa. We've clocked in 4,000 kilometers so far, and it's been quite a journey.
Okay, before we get into some of the messaging and why you're doing it, not many Canadians walk across Canada. How has this experience been for you emotionally, physically? What were some of the unexpected things that you encountered physically as you did this journey?
Yeah, to say it's been a roller coaster is an understatement. It has definitely had its terrifying lows and dizzying highs. Physically, there was a conditioning process that continues on. Actually, I don't. There was a lot of buzz. I remember when I said I was going to start this about how I would decay the further I went, but I feel actually a lot better than I did when I started.
Wow.
We're regularly getting in between 45 and 50 kilometers a day.
Well, that's amazing.
So,
again, you're going from Vancouver to Ottawa. That's quite the journey.
Yeah, and it's been a learning experience. I've met a lot of amazing people along the way. It's definitely challenging. It's stressful. It's exhilarating. I have to get used to being approached by people from all different directions now, and more folks are pulling over on the highway to say hello and offer support.
Wow.
And it's definitely, it's been an amazing experience, despite the suffering. As we close in on the end here, reflect on what we've accomplished as a team. And it's unfortunate that it's not getting more mainstream press coverage just because of how this team has gelled and come together and worked together over the last
well, we're happy
months.
to have you on again. This is the second time I've covered it, so I'm happy that we, as at the newsroom, is able to give some coverage. Now, do you feel, because you're marching, we talked about this the last time, you're not walking across Canada, you're marching because you're marching with a purpose. What is the purpose? And I want to hear it in your own words. And do you feel your message is being heard?
I do. And I think the purpose was for me to air my grievances. This is a protest against a mandate that require federal government, and I'm hoping to expand it to the corporate sector, as a term of employment, to be vaccinated or prove your vaccination or undergo some other kind of medical procedure. That, as you know, was put in place by the government last November. And I'm speaking on behalf of everybody who is in a similar situation to I am, where I'm on leave without pay, and I'm also being released from the armed forces administratively.
Oh, okay.
And that was because of my failure to comply with the Chief of Defense Staff Directive on vaccination policy. And finally, I'm speaking on behalf of all of those folks who I have encountered along the way who had to submit because they were threatened with losing a paycheck. So that's what it's all about. That's the protest. I want to have my grievance heard at the highest levels because there was nowhere I was going to be able to go in the public service union. north my chain of command, and I felt the only recourse was to reach out to the representatives at the federal government.
Okay, we're going to pause
that's
you
what I did.
here. We're going to pause you here. We're going to cut to commercial, but we'll pick up this interview in just a few moments. Welcome back. We're joined live by James Topp, or live as we're recording this interview, as he walks across Canada over 4,000 kilometers. James, you said you're just a few hundred kilometers outside of your landing, your end of this march, which is Ottawa. What do you hope to achieve when you get to Ottawa?
Okay, so there's two parts to this. Way back when we had invited members of parliament. So with the help of my team, I wrote a letter. I mailed it to every single member of parliament in the House of Commons, 338 of them. I asked them for a meeting on the 22nd of June. And the response that I got was at this day and at this particular date, we have about 20 or 25 members of parliament attending this meeting. And we're actually going to meet with them on the 22nd of June, so 2 days from now, to talk about the things that I have outlined in an agenda of items. And they're called the 3+1 R's, which actually should be rephrased to 3 R's equals repair. So I'm talking about repealing, not just suspension of restrictions, but repealing mandates completely, reinstating workers, restitution for wages lost. And that is going to equal repair, because we have a significant divide in this society on a number of different levels, and it needs to be repaired, as soon as possible. And that's going to go towards that repair piece.
Now,
So that's going to happen on the 22nd of June. Then on the 30th, that's the interview or meeting that I'm going to drive to in 2 days, have the meeting, drive back, and then continue marching until I actually get into Ottawa on the 30th of June.
Got it. Now, some critics or some viewers might say, well, most of the restrictions are gone now. Why continue this march? Aren't things back to the way things were? I mean, now people can fly on planes again and board trains, and most companies have kind of put the mandates to the side. How do you respond to those concerns?
Yeah, ultimately, what I would say is I haven't heard the full announcement, but my understanding is this is a suspension of mandates that could be reinstated at the drop of a hat. Personally, nobody has approached me about going back to work, and I have yet to hear back from the Canadian Armed Forces as to whether or not I'll be reinstated there either, even though I am a bit of trouble with them. And what about the corporate sector? Who does everybody who got let go get their job back? Because if they're peeling back these mandates, clearly this is admission that this program that they instituted was not as successful as they would have liked. So I don't believe that suspension is good enough. I haven't been told that I'm getting back to work yet.
Right.
And furthermore, you still need to wear a mask to get on a plane. So why, and if anybody thinks I went all this way and I'm not going to go the distance just because they lifted a few restrictions on travel, then I would say to them, you're out of your mind.
So knowing that several months ago, a few months ago, I suppose, in January, February, there were, the Freedom Convoy was on Parliament Hill, and there was a massive swell of support across Canada. Many people traveled across the country to join in that rally. And then soon we saw a lot of the mandates lifted after, there was, police military intervention to dismantle the whole protest. Things quieted down, things lifted. Do you expect there to be the same response from the public as there was for the Freedom Convoy? I guess what I'm trying to say is, are people paying attention, or do they feel that things are back to the way they feel is normal?
I have no idea what people think, but I know that I continue to get lots of support, lots of people telling me how thankful they are that I'm doing what I'm doing. I don't for the folks who bothered to stop and say hello and tell me how thankful they are for what I'm doing, I don't get the impression that they think anything is, been returned to pre-2020 levels.
Right.
Okay, so I don't know how to answer the question. It's just, I don't think that letting up at this stage of the game is a good idea, just because we were told that they're letting folks who are not vaccinated onto airplanes and
Right.
trains.
Now, if people want some
So,
more,
you
we
know what
only
I
have
mean?
10 seconds left. If people want more information on your march, where can they go?
CanadaMarches.ca.
Okay, James, all the best to you as you wrap up these last few 100 kilometers. Thank you so much. Welcome back. Now we're going to be joined by Tom Morazzo, who you might recall was a spokesman for the Freedom Convoy, and he is now Chief of Staff for Veterans for Freedom. Tom, great to have you here. I understand you were walking, a couple dozen kilometers or so this morning with James Topp.
I wish I was young enough to do a couple dozen kilometers in one day without training, but no. I think I maxed out 14 today.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that was plenty, because I've got a lot of work to do tomorrow when I get to Ottawa.
Right. Okay. So let's talk about that. So let's start with your organization. So Veterans for Freedom. You are a veteran, right? From military, yes. From the armed forces. So is James. What is the mandate of this organization, and what do you hope to achieve?
So, a lot of people could go on the website and kind of learn more, the veteransforfreedom.ca, but ultimately what we're really about is the military. We're trained in very unique skills in terms of planning and coordinating and logistical support, which was one of the reasons I got called to go to the Freedom Convoy. But we're very good at what we do when it comes to that logistical stuff. So, and it's a terrible analogy, but I'm going to use it anyway to try to explain it. We're affiliated with a lot of different freedom fighting groups, and just people that have formed groups, grassroots movements that don't like the way this country is headed. And so we realized that the biggest skill that we could bring would be to help all of those individual groups plan all of their events. So it's a terrible analogy for a bunch of rough and tough military people, but it's kind of like the organizations like, Canada Marches. They're kind of like the bride and the groom. We're the wedding planners.
Gotcha.
So yeah, they can focus on really the important stuff, the message they want to get across, the speakers, and we handle all of the logistical piece around that.
Yeah, because there are a lot of logistics that go into a man marching across Canada and trying to set up political meetings while marching, 50K a day? I mean, that's a lot.
It is a lot. It is a lot. And I joined yesterday with James. James is an old friend of mine from 1996. We obviously lost contact, but we've reunited since, the Freedom Convoy and Canada Marches. And in my organization that I'm in with the others, Veterans for Freedom, meshed in really well with his arrival in Ottawa. And that's where we're really getting involved, because we have already an established relationship with the city of Ottawa, the Ottawa Police Services from our time at the Freedom Convoy. So we've been working really hard with the Ottawa Police to plan James's arrival into the cenotaph, or the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier, on the 30th. So we're planning the entire route, the final 30-kilometer march into the city and all the activities around. And we're coordinating that very closely with the city of Ottawa and the police, as well as emergency services. We're planning for safety.
Right.
And, I want to be very clear. This is not the trucker convoy. This is Canada Marches. This is James Topp. My involvement just happened to be coincidental that I'm old friends with James. But, obviously we want to support James, and we've been trying to as best we can from afar. But now that he's close to Ottawa, it's well within our means to set up in support in logistically do the sustainment plan for his entire time in Ottawa for however long this takes.
Well, okay, you said his time in Ottawa. How long is James planning on staying in Ottawa, or all of you for that matter?
Well, there's two parts to that. One, I guess, is as long as it takes to achieve what James wants to achieve. and the rest of the coalition partners that we are coming together in talking with. There'll be more information about that in the future. But, the important thing is we're not trying to disrupt the city. And it's very disappointing because the mainstream media have been setting this foundation, laying the groundwork to make it sound like this is the return of the Freedom Convoy into Ottawa and that we're going to be disrupting. And we've been putting out a lot of media statements, Veterans for Freedom, Canada Marches, and the others saying, look, we're not doing the things that you say we're going to do. This is safe, responsible, perfectly legal, and it is being done with the cooperation of the city and the police. So when you see, articles come out from like the CBC or CTV.
Well, okay, let me stop you here because you said that that's not what's happening. We only have 30 seconds before we cut to commercial.
Yep.
So what are you going to be doing in Ottawa? Are you blocking roads? Like what's your,
Nope.
You're not the convoy.
No, we're actually going to be doing a lot of events in public spaces. We're going to be doing education to the public. We're going to be engaging with medical professionals to educate the public during our time in Ottawa.
Got it.
So
okay.
This is as much of a protest as it is an education opportunity for people that really want to hear an alternative side of the story.
Welcome back. We're continuing our discussion with Tom Morazzo, Chief of Staff for Veterans for Freedom, who is working with Canada Marches, of course, representing James Topp, the veteran who's marching across Canada. Before the commercial break, Tom, we were discussing what the Canada Marches is and what it isn't, and you made it very clear this isn't the Freedom Convoy. But
right.
When I've spoken to various persons, just in preparation for this interview, there seems to be two camps. One camp that they're thrilled that someone's continuing to do something, because I think there was this high energy during the Freedom Convoy, then things just kind of came to a very abrupt end, for better or worse. And then there's a group of people who say, but what's the point? Everything's better now. We're not in lockdown. Things are lifted. I think we're on the other side of this. How do you respond to those folks? Well,
you have to be fully aware of the fact that the supporters that we have, the supporters that were in Ottawa or supported the Freedom Convoy, were all affected by these mandates. Now, last week, Justin Trudeau announced a postponement of the mandates, but he put a big, strong caveat on there saying, hey, we're not going to hesitate to reinstate these mandates in the very near future if something else comes up. And of course, you've seen the mainstream media already priming people, talking about monkeypox. I know Theresa Tam's already talking about the 7th wave. So they're being suspended because it's the summertime. Now, we just finished an Ontario election. Doug Ford did the same thing with, the mask mandates, prepping for his election to make it normal that things were going back to the way they used to be. But we just know in the language, the mainstream media has been priming the public to be prepared in the future that these things will come back. The other big important thing is, there's a lot of people that were economically coerced. They were economically coerced into getting a experimental injection that they did not want. And so, that's one big aspect, because even if they were to remove the mandates, what about the restitution? What about the back pay? What about all those people that lost their employment for almost a year or even longer that haven't been paid? What about the harms that has done to our society? So it's not just about lifting the mandates. It's about the reinstatement of employment. It's about restitution. And then once we get all those things done, let's start talking about repairing the country. Because I have never in my life, I'm 49 years old, and I've never seen such a fractured society in Canada, something I never thought that I would see in my entire life.
I agree with you. And, I've spoken to, again, because of the nature of what I do, I speak to a plethora of Canadians all the time. And, the one thing that I found interesting about what James said, that he also represents those who were coerced into receiving a treatment or undergoing a medical procedure that they didn't feel that they were coerced into. You mentioned economic push for those families. They felt they needed to put food on the table. I have to keep this job. I'll get the job. And then they regret it. And there are many folks who feel like, whether they were coerced economically or not, that, I didn't like having to be pushed into that. If I wanted to travel, I had to jump through this hoop. Where's the restitution, or what could be done for those folks?
So I think anybody federally or even provincially, I think there should be legislation passed to reinstate all of those people that lost their jobs. And I also think that with this legislation, those people should be reimbursed for the financial hardships that they have gone through. And there's sort of a case to be made of maybe people don't want to go back because, it's a toxic work environment now, or they're so upset at their employer, or the employer is upset at them, but they're now being forced to come back together. Well, maybe we just in the legislation say something like, okay, if you don't want to go back or the employer doesn't want to take you back, you'll get severance pay as well. But there has to be restitution in this.
Now, we only have 30 seconds left.
Sure.
What do you hope to achieve politically with the politicians when you get to Ottawa? We have 20 seconds.
I hope to achieve politically that the members of parliament that are going to meet with us this week, what is my sincere hope is that they recognize that we are an ally. We are a political ally because we are the voters. Get the voters on your side, and maybe we can get the changes that some of the members of parliament would like to see on behalf of their constituents as well. We can be a very strong ally if they want to take a chance and do the right thing and truly represent their Canadian voters.
Okay. Well, listen, all the best to you, to James, and everybody as you, again, march to Ottawa in a very few short days. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Thank you, Tanya.